What if the only voice keeping you alive was fading through a dying phone? In this emotional story, Quang, lost and broken, finally hears his mother's voice after weeks of despair. Through tears, he confesses his fear of never coming home, while his mother's unwavering strength reignites his hope. Though the call ends too soon, her words echo in his heart, giving him the courage to rise again and fight for his way back to his family and Linda. Glowing star, don't miss this moving journey. Subscribe now and stay with us until the end of Quang's path home. The small wooden room was barely lit by a flickering oil lamp. Shadows stretched long and fragile across the cracked walls, and the faint sound of wind brushed against the thin window panes. Quang sat at the edge of the bed, his hands trembling as he held the old mobile phone he had borrowed from the kind stranger who had taken him in. The device felt heavy in his palm, as though it carried the weight of all the longing, all the despair, and all the hope he had kept bottled up since the day he lost his way. For hours he had stared at the phone, debating whether to make the call, terrified that no one would answer, or worse, that he would hear nothing at all. Finally, with a deep breath that shook his chest, he pressed the number he knew by heart. His mother's number. The line rang once, twice, 3 times, and in that small eternity his heart pounded so violently it felt as though it might burst through his ribs. Then, at last, a voice came through, a voice soft and trembling, yet achingly familiar. "Hello?" It was her. The moment Quang heard his mother's voice, his throat tightened and his vision blurred. All the walls he had built to keep himself strong crumbled in an instant. Tears welled up and streamed down his gaunt face, leaving hot trails on his skin. His lips quivered as he pressed the phone closer, almost as if by doing so he could shorten the distance between them. His voice cracked when he finally managed to speak, words spilling out like a long-suppressed cry. "Mom. It's me. It's Quang." There was a pause, then a gasp on the other end, sharp and broken, as though his mother's world had suddenly been split wide open. He imagined her hand flying to her mouth, her knees weakening, her tears falling as freely as his own. For weeks she had believed him gone, lost to the shadows of misfortune. And now, against all odds, he was reaching out to her, breathing, speaking. "Alive, Quang? My son, is it really you?" Her voice cracked with disbelief and joy, carrying both the softness of a mother's embrace and the agony of endless nights spent weeping. The sound of her, so alive, so real, cut straight into his chest. Quang could no longer hold back. He broke down completely, sobs racking his frail body as he choked out his confession. "Mom. I miss you so much. I miss you and Linda. Every day, every night. I've wanted nothing more than to come home. But I don't even know where I am. I don't know how to get back to you." The words tumbled from his lips in a broken rush, each syllable heavy with despair. He pressed his free hand against his eyes, but the tears kept flowing, unstoppable. His voice was raw, stripped of all the strength he had tried to show to the world. In that moment, he was not the determined young man who had endured hardship and loneliness. He was just a son, lost in the vastness of the world. On the other end of the line, his mother's heart clenched as she listened to her son's broken voice. She could hear the desperation behind every syllable, the weight of suffering he had carried alone. For a fleeting moment, the silence between them was filled only with his muffled sobs and the faint crackle of the poor connection. She wanted nothing more than to reach through the phone, to cradle his face in her hands, to reassure him with her touch the way she had when he was a child trembling from nightmares. But all she had were words, and so she clung to them, poured every ounce of her strength into them, steady and unwavering. "Quang, listen to me," she said softly but firmly, her voice carrying a warmth that spread into the fragile corners of his heart. "You are alive, that is what matters most. As long as you breathe, there is hope. You don't need to know where you are right now, my son. You only need to hold on. Your mother will find you. Linda will find you. You are not alone." Her words were like a thread of light piercing through the suffocating darkness that had surrounded him for so long. Quang pressed the phone tighter to his ear, drinking in every sound, every syllable. He could almost see her face, the lines of worry that must have deepened over the weeks, the tears that she tried to hide from him even now. Her steadiness, her refusal to crumble, was what gave him the strength to breathe. "Mom," he whispered, his voice hoarse, "I thought I would never hear you again. I thought I was gone to you forever." "No," she interrupted gently but with conviction, "you will never be gone from me. A mother always knows when her child is still out there, still fighting. And I knew, in my heart, that you were alive. That's why I prayed every night, Quang. I prayed, and I waited, and now God has returned your voice to me. Don't give up, my son. Don't you dare let go of hope." Each word sank into him like a balm against his wounds. The despair that had consumed him for weeks began to loosen its grip. His sobs softened into trembling breaths, and though his chest still ached, there was a flicker of something new inside him, something fragile, yet unyielding. "Mom, I feel so weak," he admitted. "Every step feels heavier than the last. But hearing you now, it's like I can breathe again. Like I can keep going." His mother smiled through her tears, though he could not see it. "That's because love, my son, is stronger than fear. And you are surrounded by love, mine, Linda's, and everyone waiting for you. You may feel weak now, but you carry us with you. Our strength is yours." For the first time in weeks, Quang let out a shaky laugh amidst his tears. It wasn't much, just a small sound, but it carried with it the weight of survival, of faith restored. He could almost feel his mother's hand patting his shoulder, telling him everything would be all right, and in that moment, sitting alone in the dim little room, Quang realized he was no longer alone. His mother's voice, steady and unwavering, was a lifeline pulling him back from the edge. The world. The call ended too soon. A sharp tone cut through the fragile thread of connection, and the screen went black, his mother's voice swallowed by silence. The battery had finally surrendered, leaving Quang staring at his reflection in the dark glass of the phone. For a long moment, he sat frozen, unwilling to move, unwilling to accept that the warmth of her voice had faded so quickly. His hands still shook as he clutched the device, holding it to his chest as though it contained her heartbeat. The room was suddenly unbearably quiet, the kind of silence that made every thought echo louder in his head. Yet within that stillness, something had changed. The despair that had clung to him like a shadow was lighter now, thinned by the words his mother had given him. Her promise that she and Linda would find him, that he was not alone, lingered in the air, wrapping around him like an invisible embrace, Quang rose slowly, his legs stiff and his body weary, but his steps carried a new steadiness. He walked to the window, pulling aside the worn curtain. The first rays of dawn spilled into the room, painting the floorboards gold. Outside, the mist was lifting, revealing the outlines of trees and rooftops beyond. It was a simple view, one he had seen countless times in this forgotten village, but today it felt different. The light seemed brighter, the air less heavy, as though the world itself had shifted with his mother's words. He closed his eyes and let the sunlight wash over his face. The warmth reminded him of mornings back home, of the way his mother used to wake him with the smell of rice cooking, of the sound of Linda's laughter drifting from the yard. Those memories no longer hurt as they once had. Instead, they gave him strength. They were proof that he belonged somewhere, that love was waiting for him beyond the haze of uncertainty. "I will live," Quang whispered to himself, his voice firm despite the lingering tremor. "I will survive, and I will return to them." His chest rose with a deep breath, steadier than any he had taken in weeks. The fire inside him, long dimmed by fear and exhaustion, flickered back to life. It wasn't a roaring blaze yet, but it was enough to light his path forward. The borrowed phone lay useless in his hand, its screen lifeless. But to Quang, it was more than just a tool, it was a talisman now, a reminder that he was not lost forever. He placed it gently on the small table beside the bed and turned toward the door. Beyond it, the day was waiting. Challenges would come, he knew the road ahead would not be easy, and danger might still lurk in the shadows, but he was no longer afraid to face them. For the first time in so long, Quang's reflection in the window did not look like a broken man. His face was still drawn and pale, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but there was a spark in them, a spark of determination, of faith. He lifted his chin, straightened his back, and let the weight of his mother's words anchor him. Outside, the village stirred to life. The call of roosters echoed across the fields, and distant voices carried on the morning breeze. To anyone else, it was an ordinary day. But to Quang, it was the beginning of his journey home, and as he stepped out into the light, he carried with him the promise he had made in the silence of that small room, a promise whispered not only to himself, but to the two people who waited for him with unwavering hearts. "I will come back to you, Mom. I will come back to you, Linda."